Hello, and welcome to another episode of Boundless Body Radio. I'm your host, Casey Ruff, and today we have another amazing guest to reintroduce to you now. Dr. Christopher S. Black is a returning guest on our show. Be sure to check out his recent appearance on episode 426 of Boundless Body Radio. Dr. Christopher Black is a chiropractor who focuses on the healing needs of the entire family. He is the owner of DocBlack Family Chiropractic, which encompasses the chiropractic offices of CS Black Family Chiropractic in West Warwick and Narragansett Family Chiropractic in Narragansett, both in Rhode Island. Dr. Black helps his patients think differently about their journey back to health by using traditional chiropractic care along with structural chiropractic correction. Dr. Black has also been leveraging a carnivore diet with himself and his patients with great success. The vision of the entire team at DocBlack Family Chiropractic is the following. Quote, we create relationships with families that seek a better life. As a chiropractic office, we get to hold the hands of those who seek greater health and the discovery of their own unique gifts. We love serving those that are actively engaged in their lives, families, and well-being. Through this journey, we are bound by the commonality of laughter, love, faith, and belief of the things that are possible, end quote. DocBlack Family Chiropractic has your back, and your back holds the keys to less pain and better health. Dr. Black, what an absolute honor it is to welcome you back to Boundless Body Radio.
Casey, thanks for having me back. I had such a good time last time, and when you invited me back, I couldn't say no.
Well,
awesome.
I really appreciate it. Dude, first take, Narragansett, nailed it.
I was thinking you'd be thinking about that pretty much all day long, getting ready. So yeah, that's a tough one. You did amazing.
Maybe I have, maybe I haven't. It's unconfirmed. It's a rumor.
You're getting there. Awesome.
Oh, man. So I really enjoyed your recent appearance on Scott Mosinski's podcast, and it sounds like from that episode, you got a little bit fired up about maybe finding a low carbohydrate conference to attend.
You know what? I would really love to. I certainly want to try to invite you to invite me, whenever they come, so that way I can try to get them in my calendar. But yeah, like we had spoken last time, it's just so healthy to be around people that think the same way we do, because it's very often easy to get lost in the woods when you're out here just telling our truths and not everybody's listening, and you can kind of get defeated, or we all need that uplift. And like I explained to Scott, doing these podcasts for me is almost reaffirming of the beliefs that I have, and it helps me become better as a person, better as a carnivore, better as a chiropractor, better as a dad when I'm done with this. So it's helpful for me to share, because it reconvicts me to go out and continue the message. So when you go to a conference like that, whether it be for the carnivore world, low keto world, or even me, chiropractic seminars, we connect with people who think the same way we do. And it nourishes the soul in a sense. And it goes, well, okay, I'm not the crazy one. There are other people like us, and our communities are actually growing. So it's really exciting to be deeper connected into this world of healthcare, carnivore, as well as, connecting back and how it all ties in with the chiropractic world. So yeah, I've been excited over the last couple of months, and I've been fired up and listening to new things, trying new things with myself. And it's just really cool.
Yeah, dude, that's great. Okay, so how you feel on carnivore, right? Like you do
Absolutely.
it because you know how you feel. So physically, you have all the strength you need. You never really get tired in the middle of the day. You know how you sleep. You just kind of have really calm, easy sleep. You mentally and emotionally, you know how you feel on carnivore. It's just, everything's just smooth. Nothing's too high or too low. Anxiety kind of fades out. You're just pretty generally content with everything. It's great. And I would argue even spiritually, there's something different that happens with your spirituality, your gratitude, your presence, whatever you want to call it. Now take 1,000 people like you and put them all in a room together, and it's just electric, man. It's so cool.
Yeah, and I was thinking the other day, I said, we've also solved the lifelong, or the question of, well, what's for dinner, right? We don't have to answer anymore. It's steak. I'll steak. We have that conversation. What's for dinner? I don't know. I'll steak. So those problems have been solved. So it's a great, no, but it's so important. And then we all learn from each other, because we all do it differently, right? And I tolerate things a little bit different. And everybody that I've seen in this community it's not one of those communities where we back on each other, right? We may kind of disagree, or I don't really like it that way, but it's all about you being a better you, and what experience you can garner from that, and then share with me, and you share it to hundreds and thousands of other people. So I get something from each and every person, and your message hits a different population than somebody else's would. And that's why we all need so many voices. But when we can come together and learn and be open enough to learn and share, that's when growth comes, and then it helps us help our people. And we all have people, even if you're not a healthcare practitioner, you have your people. The mom who's doing carnivore, standing at the line, picking up the kids at school, who's showing amazing personal achievement has her people because people look up to her. So it's, yeah, this is a totally pretty cool grassroots movement that we're all involved in.
It really
All
is.
for the, all for the betterment of one, ourselves, and then two, those people that are in our influence. So it's really exciting.
It is super exciting. And it's so cool to be alive in 2023 when there's so many different mediums and ways to share. And you're right, like we all have a part in this, whatever your people are, even if it's your direct family, it's part of your responsibility, in my opinion, to help them live healthfully as well. I was just
Absolutely.
thinking for like kind of the theme of what we're going to be talking about eventually. It's like it's one thing to decide to try something yourself. Like for you to decide to try carnivore, you have to do research. You got to think about cholesterol and all this stuff. And like it's one thing to do it for you. It's another thing to recommend it to patients. That gets now you really
100%.
need to kind of know your stuff because you don't want to harm anybody. And then when it's your family and your kids, that's like, okay, whoa, now if you misguide them or mislead them, that is a huge responsibility that you need to take very, very seriously. So it really forces your hand on hitting the books, understanding things, and making really good logical decisions.
100%, and just actually since our last conversation, we talked about my love for coffee. And I decided, not for a dogmatic reason, I'm going to try going off coffee. And on St. Patty's Day, for some reason, I decided to go cold turkey. Let me tell you, that was a brutal week. I suffered horribly. It shows you, and I didn't realize how deeply involved with coffee I was. I had headaches and everything you talk about for about, I was like, wow, but I have not had coffee since then. It's just from my own personal experience. And I feel good. I don't, I miss maybe some of that habit portion of it, but I can live without coffee. So that's a good thing. I may go back to it, I may not, but I wanted to try it. And then I was listening to another podcast and the guy was talking about dry fast. Now, educatedly, or in my brain, that is completely crazy. I can't go without drinking water. So I tried a 48-hour dry fast. Amazing. I mean, I think I posted up some of my blood ketone results and fasting blood sugar from that for 48 hours. And it was crazy. I felt great. My energy was out of this world. I think I was thirsty because I thought I was supposed to be thirsty. But I think my body was just doing its thing. Nothing skipped a beat other than like, what do I do with my hand? I'm not supposed to be drinking. It was, but I came back excited and I'm exploring that more. So when I feel more confident with that, with certain people that I know that could benefit, I might recommend, hey, let's try this to jumpstart your process. And I think that could be a valuable thing for my client or even myself when you have those bad choice days to jumpstart, a new beginning in a sense. But I can also recognize from understanding the journey I've been through is if you are, a coffee drinker, and if you are, eating a traditional Western diet, doing a dry fast will be completely counterproductive because your body's sick. You don't know you're sick. So to try to purge all that out of you immediately, it will be a horribly bad thing. So it's taught me to realize that not everybody needs to go from here to here. You have to kind of work into where you're at and make better decisions till you're almost at that level. Yeah. So it is that self-experiment is just so exciting to me because then I can feel, like you said, confident to recommend it to the people who put their trust in me. Sometimes they may not like what I have to say, but if I feel it's the truth, I'm going to tell you. I'm not going to mirror what you want to hear just because you come into my office, because that's not why you're coming to see me. You do want the truth, and sometimes it may be hard, and that's okay, and we try to work together that way. And then parlaying that, and hopefully your family sees you lead by example. And I think raising children, you have to be careful in how much you push at them. You hopefully that they learn and gather and watch you grow, but in the background, you're trying to make the right decisions that are best for them, not only in the immediate, but the way I look at it, generationally, are they going to be healthier adults because of the decisions we made when they were young? So that's
great point.
It's a long game,
Yeah. That's a great point. No, I absolutely love that. And I'm so glad you were willing to talk about those things. I was going to ask you about the dry fast. That's super fascinating. In that interview on the Scott Miz show that just got rebranded from Carnivore Cast, you made a point. I believe you made it in the interview that you and I did the first time. And for most of us in the carnivore world, I think we take it for granted at this point. And we can skip past it. But for somebody who's not in the chiropractic world or even the carnivore world, they might hear this and be like, wait, what is he talking about? And I want to make sure we hit home on this. The traditional medical system only benefits if you stay sick. Is that, 100%. That's it?
I mean, I feel so. Yeah, I really, truly, I personally believe that because if you called up a general practitioner, and these are well-intended human beings who grew up wanting to help people, and I'm not badgering any individual practitioner. I'm talking about their paradigm, their system of delivery of care. I'm not even going to call it healthcare. They grow up wanting to help people. They go to medical school. They are trained basically. Patient presents with A and B, you do C, D, E, and F for testing. If this result is this, you do that. So, there was a study now that an artificially intelligent computer passed the medical exam almost completely flawlessly. So, without that critical thought, without that relationship building, you don't get to the essence of that individual patient. So getting back to your question is if you called the general practitioner and said, I feel absolutely fantastic. I want you, doctor, to help me stay that way. You're going to be like, well, what are you doing here? They don't even have the skills to help you stay well. They're really versed. And if you're sick, trying to give you a intervention, a chemical or a potion or something to help moderate your physiology to eliminate symptoms and hopefully move you there. But if you take a 45-year-old with high blood pressure and high cholesterol, they're going to put you on anti-cholesterol medicine and blood pressure pills, and that's it. And then guess what? Those chemicals do what they are intended to do. They will, for the short period of time, reduce those numbers, but they never have been studied to prove, is it helping your overall quality of life? Is it help other systems? But as we know, those pills are only treating a symptom. High blood pressure is a symptom. It's a symptom of something. So by artificially reducing that in a human, guess what's going to happen? The body realizes that it's not in its state of equilibrium, which at this point, because of whatever stress it is, it wants high blood pressure. Maybe it's stress or whatever. So it's going to drive that blood pressure back up. So you go back in 6 months. Oh my God, my blood pressure is back up. Well, try this med, right? So they keep chasing this symptom. And I contend that there are very often underlying issues that are causing these very often named conditions. So that system isn't making the individual more healthy. It's making them more average. So average isn't necessarily you or me. So when we chase symptoms, we ultimately lead to sicker and sicker people. And then they become generationally sicker now. I think we are, and I said this on Scott's show, I think we are so sick as a society, most of us, we don't even know what being not sick is. You're brought up taking multiple medications. I mean, how many young children are on multiple? It's crazy. I volunteered at Scout Camp very often with my children, and very often as being the health safety officer. If a child is on any medications, they check them in with the office, and we, do it. I would say the majority of children come in with bags of multiple medications. And to me, as a parent of 3 children who have never had any medication throughout their entire lives, it just blows me away. These young people at 9 were teaching me how to cut pills. I was like, this is incredible. It's actually ripping my heart out because they are living that they need an outside-in intervention in order to be well. And I contend in most cases, that's probably not the case. Again, I'm not bashing medicine. If God forbid my children had an injury or an illness that you couldn't, your body can't get its hands around, I'm grateful for modern medicine to intervene for crisis intervention or those sort of things. But for the, 9-year-old should not be on 5 or 6 different medications. It's staggering.
Only to be recommended Ozempic at age 12.
Oh, but look at every TV commercial. It's a chemical, it's a pill, it's removing that ability of the individual to make their own health choices. I mean, I think we were born with that innate wisdom of the body to heal. If, God forbid, your 1-year-old gets a cut on its hand, you don't freak out that cut is ultimately going to heal itself. There's an inborn healing potential as long as we remove whatever the obstruction to that healing is. And through our last conversation, talking to my mentors 20, 30 years ago, 40 years, 50 years ago, people just aren't healing the way that they did because I don't think we're healthy enough overall because of a number of symptoms. And the one thing that we talked about that we can control is what people eat and what we consume. They're building blocks. If they're eating garbage and they're thinking garbage and they're believing garbage and they're not moving their bodies, they're not going to be able to express their innate healing potential to their optimal capacity, no matter the intervention, no matter what it is if you go in for reconstructive shoulder surgery and you know, you're almost a borderline diabetic, your diet you're not going to heal as well as somebody who, for example, like somebody like a Tom Brady who only dedicates to his health. And that's why people say, well, I'm not a paid athlete. Well, no, you don't treat your body like an athlete. So you're not getting the results that these guys are doing. Now, again, they do some pretty stupid stuff too. But the analogy I mean is if somebody is a healthy vessel, they're going to heal better.
Yeah.
And actually, since one of our last podcasts, I got a Facebook message from a patient that she had a stroke, a young, and she went that whole interview, and maybe not directly through me, but she's been following my stuff, and she hit me up with a message. She says, I've been listening to you and a lot of other people. And she says, we've started off ketogenic diet. Then she's transitioning more into carnivore diet, and she had knee surgery. And her doctor was like, I don't know what you did, but you're healing better than about 90% of my patients. Well, her body's not inflamed. And she was like, yeah, I knew it was my little secret because she says, I couldn't tell this guy what I was doing, because particularly being a post-stroke patient, following a carnivorous diet, they would have thrown her out for being crazy. But she's like, I feel better than I did when I was 20. My body healed. She says, I'm just such a better person. Thank you. So I turned her on to some other people, and she and her family now are exploring this. So we make a difference. We do make a difference. They do listen and they do pay attention.
Yeah.
So yeah, traditional healthcare doesn't really want you to be well because there's no profit in wellness. Can't sell you something, and I contend in some aspects of even my own profession, if we're only chasing the back pain, the headache people, we're not empowering that individual with the true essence of true healthcare. And that's removing an obstruction to healing. In the chiropractic realm, it's that interference from the spinal nervous system, from the spinal bone's not working. We remove that, and guess what happens? I don't know. Your body takes it from there. I don't heal you. I just remove an obstruction to healing, and I will make a suggestion to give your cells in clay, as I called it last time, the best chance to become better, healthier clay by removing toxins that we're getting from the environment, from our foods, all of that. So
wow.
Yeah, it's fun. It's really, and this makes it even more fun because some people may not just get the chiropractic message because, we've been beat up to believe that we're quacks, which is fine. I kind of like that role, but you talk to them about diet. Well, okay, I want to lose a few pounds. Great. If that's my hook to help you make better choices, fantastic. Or then open up the opportunity to research for your own self-study, right? And then they go at their own pace. And, a year later, they may not see me, but you see them in the store. Oh my God, you look great. Could they benefit from chiropractic? Absolutely. But their lives are completely changed because they've made some choices.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think I served that patient well.
That's so cool. I love that. So well explained. I really appreciate that. Man, before we deep dive into the topic that we're going to talk about today, do we need some kind of disclaimer? Do we need some warning message or something? Why does this feel so weird and taboo to talk about things like immunity and innate healing? I feel weird about it.
Because it's something that's not recognized, I guess, in the discussions that we have today, and I'm going to share with it just as a family of one. I'm telling you my experience and the experiences that I've had with other patients or other chiropractors or other people who just are free enough to think that the body's a pretty miraculous thing. And I think we educatedly are pretty stupid. When we take our educated brain and think we know better than nature, however you want to call it, nature, God, innate intelligence, whatever, then we get into trouble, right? Because out of all of our educated knowledge, we can't take 2 cells and make a living, breathing human being. We could take, Casey, you and I could go eat Twinkies for an entire week. And guess what? We're going to make eyeball cells, heart cells, liver cells. They're not going to probably be the best, but our innate wisdom of our body can take crap and continue to make us be who we are. It's fascinating. So when you allow and recognize that, who knows what can happen? But I think we come from a very fearful place, right? We have always been taught, the doctor is supreme. You have to listen. Health comes from something. It's a bazillion-dollar industry, even in good intended keto world or carnivore world. People think we need to add in a supplement or add in a thing. Now, I'm not saying those things are bad, but I don't think that the body needs necessarily an outside intervention to be truly healthy. I think you can probably be pretty darn healthy by eliminating a lot of things and making better choices. I think with the environmental exposures of chemicals, radio waves, stress, all of that, I think there are probably a few things that are important to help fortify what we do, but I don't think you necessarily have to go out and buy XYZ product to be healthy. So we then take wellness and encapsulate it into an allopathic model. You want to be well, you have to take this. But well, no, I contend healing comes from more within, and it's just different. And when you talk to people like this, you tug on some of their own fears, some of their own, they can't even grasp it. Like you say things and they just don't even know where you're coming from. It becomes like those conversations where you talk about religion, politics. Vaccines were one of those topics that it hits people at an inner core, because I think it goes to a deep level of their belief and understanding. And I've learned to delicately kind of know my audience, be careful in what I can and can't say professionally, but I tell people and I share people with how I live my life. And the proof is in my 3 children. They've never missed a day from school for being sick. They have beautiful skin. My daughter's 15 with a natural 28-day menstrual cycle with no problems. I mean, her body is just a pure expression of what a person should be. So we live it and we see it, and they're happy, they're healthy, and they sometimes see their friends living that traditional life and be like, why? They don't even understand it because they're too young to even process the gift of what they have comparable to what's out there, so
Yeah.
It's fun. It's a cool journey, but yeah, let's, whatever you want to talk about, let's see what we got, and we'll try not to be deplatformed or whatever it takes. I don't know.
Exactly, that is exactly what I want to talk about. Your end of one experience with your family, I find absolutely fascinating. Would love to hear your experience. Before we talk about your family, we kind of have to back up maybe a little bit with your own story. And where did that kind of, I guess, like the curiosity or the realization that like the medical system is good for certain things. It's good for acute care. It's good for a broken bone. I want a hospital for sure. But for chronic care, it's not great. Where did that come from in you? When did you realize that the chronic care, the prescriptions, the shots, all these other things may not be the best thing for us?
It kind of probably started with my health journey, because as I said last time, I wanted to be a chiropractor since I was about 16. But even reflecting back deeper into that, my father worked at the hospital. My mother was kind of always a little overweight and kind of sickly. Her brother was a pharmaceutical sales rep for a big manufacturing company. So anytime I had a sniffle or whatever, it was either take to the doctor, or he would give, the antibiotics. So I was on antibiotics chronically all my life. And I did suffer from bronchitis. And I just remember anytime I'd have a cold, my lungs would hurt. I would just be miserable. And I never really connected it until years later. When I went to that chiropractor, I started to get adjusted. And all of those, I never was sick. I haven't been to a medical doctor since I was 16. So all of that stuff, my life changed because I started to express more health and vitality myself. So I never connected it. As a 16, 18-year-old kid, you don't get that. But then wanting to go to chiropractic school, talking to some of the old timers, reading some of the old stories and books from the philosophy of chiropractic, because chiropractic is really a philosophy of that inborn healing and the expression with the removal of the obstruction. So it started to make sense. So you got to figure, I graduated chiropractic school at 24. So the 24-year-old filled with piss and vigor of, I'm going to cure cancer with chiropractic, which is not true. But, just that I'm going to change the world. Everybody who's under my care is going to have these miraculous healings. I'm going to tell every parent how to raise their kids. And, it's totally different than now the 50-year-old or even the 40-year-old who had a child, right? So life kind of steers you, and God smacks you a few times.
It's nice to be young.
Great to be young, man. Absolutely.
I knew everything.
Of course. And, then reality hits in and everybody's different and circumstances change, and you kind of moderate and go, okay, well, that was a little juvenile, and boy, my message was potentially strong, or, those sort of things, as it all happens. So when we're passionate about things, we sometimes steamroll logic. So through that, understanding, I kind of felt that a lot of people would come to me as a last resort. And that was really chiropractic story. And we would see people, they've tried this, they've been on 5 different medications, they're fed up, they're sick, they're tired. Somebody had said, I don't know, maybe you should go see the chiropractor. And, they very often come to me very, very sick, come to my colleagues, come to my mentors. These people were sick of the sick. And one of the mentors that I had just recently reconnected with, his dad was a practicing chiropractor. I might have mentioned him last time. He couldn't even come back to Rhode Island in 1914 because it was still illegal to practice in Rhode Island. So he went to Virginia, then he came back, but he had a home office and he grew up with his dad taking care of people like in the living room. It was a pretty cool setup. And he said he would remember people coming in wheelchairs and being carried in and just, the worst diagnoses ever. And some of those people actually walked out of his office. So when he got into practice, he expected people to get well under his care. He just thought that I removed the obstruction healing and that person's going to heal. So I think by seeing it and living it in the trenches and sharing the passion with some of these 90-year-old guys who still loved what I did, I said, there's got to be something to it. So I think my confidence was just built in by seeing it and being exposed to it. And that helped me. Then even in my own office, patients would seek me out, some really sick people who were going to be on the verge of surgery. We'd work with them and they'd not have to have surgery, or people having the confidence in me to bring their child who was sick. I don't really want an ear infection surgery. I don't want to have tubes. I heard chiropractic care can help. Can you help my child? I don't know, but let's try. So through my experience and dialogue, I would learn that, hey, what I do is limited. That's a hard thing to know when you're in your 20s thinking to cure the world. You can't help them all because it doesn't always work. A plus B equals C. But what I have found is A plus that interaction can sometimes help that parent just make a better decision. And it may not even be chiropractic. It may be, you know what, I get it. You're freaking out, that fever there, watch it and monitor it. But that fever isn't there because the body is stupid. That fever is there because that body is really trying hard to do what it innately knows what to do. That fever isn't there because your daughter has a insufficient amount of Tylenol in her blood. That Tylenol is going to possibly interfere with that natural fever, which has a purpose, not to be stupid and not watch it and look for signs of something going awry. But sometimes when we suppress these natural expressions of health, we delay healing itself. Your son comes home, he eats something that was bad, he starts puking. Is he sick? I contend he's expressing health. He's eliminating a toxin from his body, where some people were like, oh my God, Johnny's got diarrhea or he's throwing up. Well, no, that is a natural, full expression of his innate healing to recognize a problem and remove it. A fever would be the same way. Stuffiness.
Not a lack of the pink stuff.
Not a lack of the pink, absolutely. But then we want to continue to keep that in the body. It's just, so some of it is because if it's an inconvenience, like mommy's got to go to work. You can't be sick, so there are so many constraints that we put on ourselves as a family in our modern society. Mom and dad have to work. You can't stay home. How are you going to stay home? I'm going to miss income. It's, and nobody likes it's just a chance for the body to heal itself. Just relax. Give it a day or two. It will happen. Hydrate it. If you don't feel like it, don't hydrate it. Just really listen to that innate wisdom of the body. Don't tell you what to do. We just have to be listening to it. But if we're continually shutting off those signals with a pain modulator or a temperature modulator or things like that, we don't even know where we're at. So that, in I contend, is sometimes will further elongate a problem, or sometimes take a problem that might have spiked and changed and make it more chronic, which may mean intervention might be necessary because the body gets tired, it loses track, it just keeps going. Then all of a sudden it just can't do what it needed to do when maybe it was a small problem to begin with. So I get it. And the first, we knew we were having our first child, and I educatedly knew this is how we're going to raise our kid. We're going to do it this way. And my wife God bless her, she's on board with a lot of my crazy antics. I mean, I've known her since high school, so she's seen my evolution. She's so patient. And she was born in Europe, so they don't really have, the medical establishment didn't have its grasp on her as young. So, when she immigrated, she wasn't as young and indoctrinated, if you will. But she was open to some of my suggestions, and I probably talked a good talk back then. So we had our first child, and it was going to be rainbows and unicorns, and everything was going to be just the way it was supposed to be. And it wasn't, she had a really tough delivery and birth, and we needed a C-section, and everything that potentially could have gone wrong for where I wanted it to go did. And it was an amazing life lesson. It was scary. I was uncomfortable. It was weird. I had a lot of, oh, this is not the way it's supposed to do. So I kind of had to rally and step back. And then we realized, look, there's two outcomes. I am so grateful that those doctors were there to help have one, a healthy child, and my wife healthy and right back on track. And from that point forward, we had a pact. No matter what happens after birth, I'm going to go with my son. We have faith that the doctors are going to take care of her, but she wanted me to be with my son to make sure that we could start fresh, right? You check him out. He's healthy. He's good. Great. Now it's on our terms. We're not going to do this. We're not going to do that. We're going to do this. And I'll tell you, that was an amazing life lesson, because I thought I knew it all. I got the good God smack, and it helped me realize, okay, we can really work these two worlds together for the optimization of the individual. So it was a really exciting time. It was scary. I'll tell you, it was very, very scary. And it was given to me for a lesson, I think, to become a little bit more humble and realize that, these two systems, the allopathic care and then the more innate thinking of healing, can work together, and they both have their place. But once the crisis is gone, you have to go back to a more natural way. Otherwise, you're going to lead a lifetime of sickness.
That is fascinating.
It was crazy. I mean, because we literally thought we were going to have not a home birth, but it was going to be easy. And he got delayed. He never really ascended. So then my wife started to not be well. So we had to have some interventions. They gave her an epidural, which she didn't want. They induced her. So she went like 12 hours without any pain modulation. The nurse moved her, pulled the epidural out, so they couldn't confirm that it was actually in where it needed to be. So they had to do a spinal, which then took his heart rate down to like the 30. So then it became a crisis. It was an emergency C-section. It was absolutely everything. We couldn't have expected the things that came at us. And you know what, though? It was all for a reason. He came out pink and healthy and pissed off, and it was a great thing. And then I just went into action saying, okay, great. Nope. Vitamin K shot. No, we're going to hold off on that. And we just kind of did our antibiotics in the eyes. No, we don't need that. And they looked at me, and I'm like, that's okay. It's my kid. We can do this. And I had educatedly known that some of these choices were right for us. But when you have to make that decision with your own human being, dude, I'll tell you, I was walking on faith every step of the way, right? I educatedly knew that this little human being is perfect right now. I don't have to teach it to breathe. I don't have to worry about it eating or digesting. It's perfect. Why do I have to add in an intervention, right? But I was still scared. I was like, okay, I don't know. So we always had a backup. I always had, a pediatrician, because that was a hard thing, getting a pediatrician to work with us, because we were outside of the typical world. So we always had somebody in the back who would help us, to get released from the hospital. Was funny because we didn't have all the boxes checked off from their world. And it was great. It was unnerving as a first-time parent, because we knew this is what we want to do, but it was untested for us. We knew other people had done it, but to do it on your own, it was interesting. And this just brings back a memory. About 2 months before our son was born, a young lady calls the office to get adjusted, and she calls and she asks my wife, oh, do you do wellness care? Do you reduce subluxations? Do you do adjustments? Do you do family care? She's asking my wife this at the office. My wife is like, hold on for a second. She goes, I think the board's calling because they're asking all the right questions. It was weird. So she calls, she says, yeah, we do those things. How can we help you? Oh, my dad was a chiropractor. I was born at home. I'm now living in Rhode Island, so I'm looking for a chiropractor to continue on my wellness journey. Like, holy crap. So she comes in. So my wife really kind of studied her. I was like, wow, you were born at home. You never had a vaccination. You never had an antibiotic. You were adjusted since birth, and you're still alive. Like, so for her, it was validation that this can work. So she was put into our life pretty importantly for a reason there. So we always rely on, she can do it. I think we can do it. And then, fast forward to our third child, it's kind of like, oh yeah, we'll just have the baby, we'll go home. Like, it was like confidence and everything. And now it's like, it is such a foreign concept to do some of those things that we were so worried about. as you mature in your own understanding and you say it, it's kind of like, oh, please, come on, let's go. And my wife has matured up because they knew at the hospital that I was not going to compromise. So I had gone out because had 2 other children to take care of, and she was in the room with our youngest, and the doctor comes in and shuts the door. And so we want to talk to you about some of the things we should do. My wife was smart and said, oh, I know what you're doing. My husband's not here. I stand with what he says. We're not doing anything. You can leave now. He was like, oh, okay. So he thought he could isolate her and pressure her to make some of those more allopathic decisions. So I think with anything, the more you live it and experience it, your confidence goes up. But that has also taught me empathy for those new parents who ask me questions. And I really take that pause to reflect on the journey I've had and share with them, look, you have to be what's comfortable for you. And if it's a decision of doing a little bit of what they want and a little bit of what you want, if you're comfortable with that, know that there are consequences to both sides, and you have to respect those. Either way, you have to be comfortable with that. So please be educated. The resources now that are available to a young parent are 100-fold more than what I had. Because, the studying that I was having 20 years ago was, certain books in my peer group. Now you can Google any one of these topics, or maybe not Google, but DuckDuckGo everything. And you can really get both sides of the story and really make a better educated decision. And I think, because Scott had asked the other day, he says, do you think it's changing? And he looked at it from a younger lens, and he feels optimistic that, the ability to research information, the ability to seek information will help save us as a society. And I said, yeah, you know what? I think that's true, because the information is there. And I think young people are now starting to question things more because they've seen their parents get sick. They've seen, we might be living to 80, but that 80-year-old is not the 80-year-old that I want to live. I want to just someday not be here. I just want to not wake up because I'm used up. I don't want to be stuck not knowing who I am on 15 different medications and not living a good quality of life. So
I'm stoked about this generation. I think this generation is smart enough to ask questions.
Well, and it is, and it also has the ability for people like you and all the others to spread the opposite side of the story. And we're even seeing it in those doctors, those physicians like, Dr. Chafee, who's humble enough to realize what I'm being trained isn't what's going to actually save. It may save that individual because they're in a crisis, but it's not going to save the masses. So I think that there is hope in that sense.
Yeah.
So,
okay. So from the very beginning, so you have the crisis with the birth. You then decide from that point, one of the things you're not open to is any kind of, again, no shots, no medications, no antibiotics. We're going to stay as far away from that as possible, but still open. We have somebody in the back pocket if we need it. And if the kid breaks his arm, we'll go to the hospital.
Oh, without a doubt. And here's a real transparent story. My oldest son, he couldn't hear too well, so his speech was a little bit off, and he was always showing some congestion behind the inner ear. I was adjusting him and all of that stuff. And in all honesty, the pediatrician was so cool. She respected us, and she says, look, I don't know what's going on. I don't think he's getting good conductivity with this. He's not hearing right to enunciate. So I think that, she says, I got nothing else. I don't know what to do. The next step in my world would be to do tubes in the ears to release the fluid. She says, but I know that's nowhere where you want to go. She says, look, this is the pie of the sky. She says, I don't even know what to say. Maybe we could try antibiotics, see it once, see if it makes a change, just reduce that fluid. Are you open to it? And, after a long discussion, I said, we've tried all these things. I said, all right, let's try it. We'll deal with the consequences of his gut flora. We banged them up on probiotics. We tried it once. Sadly, it didn't change that situation. And he was extremely allergic to them. He broke out in hives like crazy.
Oh, no.
So I was like, oh, all right, we tried it. So, none of the decisions that we have made are dogmatic, and they're all completely thought out. So sometimes when you hear that a family is making some of the life choices that we made, they think they're, maybe we're a zealot, we're dogmatic, or something of that nature. Now, those people who make those convictions based on pure faith, if you will, I respect. I think you can get into some troubles with that. And those are very often the stories you run into, the sad stories. I'm not dogmatic in the sense to say, if it is necessary, it needs to be, right? So another example is my daughter up here. Do you have Lyme disease out that way? Has
We
Lyme's
don't.
disease?
Nope, not a
Okay,
thing.
you're lucky. So New England, particularly where we are, was almost like ground zero for Lyme because Lyme, Connecticut is only a couple hundred miles away.
Is
So
it
my
ticks?
daughter,
It's ticks, isn't
yeah,
it? I
yeah,
know
yeah.
nothing about it.
Yeah, it's a horrible condition. I think it was created somewhere not naturally and it spilled over into the population, all of that. So, but it makes people very, very sick. And I practice on Block Island, Rhode Island, which is a small little island off the coast. And the Lyme disease in the 90s was rampant there. And it was making people sick almost in the way like syphilis would. It gets into their central nervous system and it makes them, it loses their hearing, chronic. I mean, it's just a horrible thing. So my daughter was at the beach, and one of the telltale signs of Lyme's disease is a bullseye rash. It's the tick bite, and it creates like a bullseye that goes around it. She was at the beach, saw the bullseye, and went, "Oh crap!" I immediately called the one pediatrician that we were friendly with. And I said, "Look, Grace got a bullseye. I think she got a tick bite." And I said, "I'd like you to get her on, because the treatment for Lyme is typically a 30-day run of antibiotics, tetracycline, which isn't great for you, but it helps at least initially to kind of knock down the Lyme." Because I've seen so much chronic Lyme in my practice and what it has done to just destroy people's health, I said to that pediatrician, "Let's get her on antibiotics right away." So she says, "Okay, but we want to do the titer to see the blood test to see if she has Lyme." In my experience, that's about a 70%, give or take, effectiveness or not. She came back having no titer for Lyme. So the pediatrician said, "Well, no, just stop her on the antibiotics." And I actually said, "No." I said, "I want her to run the 30 days because I fear Lyme more than I do 30 days worth of antibiotics," right? So
Gotcha.
we made a logical decision based on the science that we had available to us to make that best decision. So we are completely not dogmatic, but we're very thoughtful in every decision we make. So they're
I
hard,
appreciate that.
and they're hard. And when you give your kid who's never had anything an antibiotic, which in your heart is just really not great for her, but you outweigh the consequences of what chronic Lyme could have done to her. Like I said, 20 years from now, because I've had, unfortunately, patients actually end their lives because of the chronic ramifications of Lyme, tinnitus, ringing in the ears. It actually drove them mad. There was nothing that they
Wow.
could do for it. So yeah, it's a horrible, horrible thing. And so that being said, to me, that risk outweighed, that. So luckily, knock on wood, everything is great. But so we appreciate and honor the ability to do those things. But sadly, so many people just do that chronically,
Yeah.
treat things chronically. And I think that's where we become sick. So
Interesting.
it's a difficult journey to live in thought. When you don't think, it's easy. You just do what you're told.
Yep.
And when you live a conscious life, and then now you're making decisions for other human beings that my life is completely dedicated to, that's a heavy burden.
That's serious.
But the knowledge and understanding, the self-study, changing me to become better, it helps me feel more confident in my recommendations,
Yeah.
for them.
Yep.
So, and I share that with patients. I tell them straight up how I lived and let them hopefully make this, because that one patient might be right on the edge of making a quantum leap in their own understanding, but they just needed to know, like when Amanda came into my office 20 years ago, that, oh my God, somebody else did it and you're not growing 3 eyes and you're functioning well, and wow, it can be done.
Yeah.
So that's the cool part of our network and our tribe that we built together.
I love that. No, I love that. And that's why I wanted to make that point early in this episode. It's like, it's one thing if you're doing it for yourself, for your kids, it's a different story. My question, I totally agree with medications and making wise decisions about that kind of thing. I'm totally on board. Where I get confused is even like the shots, vaccinations. And I'm talking about the run of the mill, the MMR that I got, the hepatitis shots that I got. I think I still might even have my card in a filing cabinet somewhere that I had in elementary school. I don't know if I could have gone to public school if I didn't have the right shots. Like, I feel like it was like this thing, like you were going to get polio or you were going to get, whatever diseases killed people in the Oregon Trail computer game. I feel like we're vaccinated for. It's so strange to hear this story. That I mean, are these things necessary? Are they harmful? Do they protect against things? Is polio going to come back if we stop vaccinating everybody? Like, what's the story here?
That is definitely a question that is hard to answer with a direct answer. It is because um, for the general population, we're taught and grown up. I mean, I had my childhood inoculations, and back in the 70s and 80s, it might have been 6. I don't know for sure, but very few. Now, a child born today is going to have multiple times that by the time they're the same age. So I think that the amount of intervention that we're putting into children is a lot. I think that there are consequences to any intervention. Could there be benefit from some of them? Possibly. Science, just like the nutritional realm, I can make a statement and an argument saying I have data to show this, then I can produce 5 more to be contrary to that. So, I think that, for example, the chickenpox now is a chickenpox, vaccine. That's pretty common. I think it started coming out in the 80s. You might have even had it because you're a little bit younger than I am. I think that has caused some challenges in the world that we're seeing today. We're seeing a lot of older population, people my age, or even a little bit older, now expressing shingles. And, now they have a shingles shot. And shingles is really the chickenpox virus that if you have chickenpox, stays inside of you. And under stressful situations, age, ill health, lowered immunity, it starts to express itself. So you'll get that chickenpox virus going right along a nerve root, and it's a rash, it's tremendously painful and all of that. But my contention is because we've prevented these young people from getting natural chickenpox at a young age, grandma, mom, and dad would be around that child to take care of it. So the exposure to something they've been exposed to would fortify their own immunity. So then they would almost be boosted later in life. So now, because we're giving children the chickenpox vaccine, so that gives them a lower subclinical exposure to the chickenpox virus, they don't get full expression. So they're not pushing that booster, if you will, to the older populations within their home. So they're starting to now, under times of stress, low immunity, express shingles, which is horrible. So I think there are consequences on all of those decisions made. Never mind potentially some of the things that the vaccines are made with, the stabilizing agents, the mercury formaldehyde. And I never would say that a vaccine, and the big argument is if you take a vaccine, then you cause autism. It really doesn't. I don't contend it works that way. I think A plus B in some people flicks a switch in their genome that causes an expression of something that we didn't expect. And that could happen in other ways, But if we look at how much intervention we are giving our children today and how sick our young people are, allergies, peanut allergies were never a thing 20 years ago. Allergies to food dyes, although they're poison, but we're hypersensitizing these young people, I think, and just making their own bodies not be able to adapt to what they're naturally getting. And I mean, if anything, these last 3 years have told us, I don't really know if I can fully trust the science, because the science is all bought and paid for. Look at the recent thing that they made everybody get. Now we're showing that it doesn't prevent transmission, like they said. It doesn't prevent this. It doesn't prevent that. If anything, there are potential significant consequences from taking it. And this is something that has been put into our face. And I think that has caused young families to reassess the whole system. So there have been some anecdotal studies to show that the families that have chosen not to, like some of the Amish communities and, crazy chiropractic families like myself who've chosen to live a lifestyle we do, they have less potential overall illnesses, and that can be extrapolated to other things. Now, again, I'm not diverse in that science. And again, when I consult with another family or another mom who's asking these questions, I say, look, the choice not to vaccinate your child and have a healthy lifestyle is it's not a one or an only decision. What it is I've made this choice, but my children have sleep discipline. They go to bed at the same time. They get up at the same time. They eat well. They think well. We don't smoke. We honor them as human beings, right? So it's a package deal. It's not a choice. So if you make a choice not to do something, you have to kind of run through it all together. And I've had a lot of patients go, you know what, that makes sense. I'm going to maybe pick and choose. I'm going to break up the sequence of the shots. I don't really think my newborn needs a hepatitis B vaccine because I don't think they're going to do street drugs and, at the age of 1. So maybe we'll wait on that, or we'll break it up, or we'll delay certain things. So they're actually at least asking the questions and fitting that into their realm. My children have been able to go to public school because, you can fall under, some states will have a religious exemption, some will have a philosophical exemption, and then there's always a medical exemption. If a child takes a shot and then shows as an expression of a reaction, good luck finding a pediatrician who will sign off on that, but those options are available. And it's your child. An episode happened with my daughter in her school. I get a call from the nurse, and the nurse goes, "Oh, Mr. Black, I just want to let you know that, there was an outbreak. There may be a case of chicken pox in your daughter's class." I said, "Okay." I said, "So before we begin, because I know my rights," I said, "is this a documented case from the pediatrician, or this is mommy calling in saying maybe?" "Well, it's not documented yet." I said, "Great. So this is an informal conversation." Because the way the law works here in Rhode Island is, if we have a religious exemption, our children can go to school, but if there's a outbreak of a communicable or a vaccinatable disease, our child has to stay home for an incubation period of time. That's the rules. I get it. If it came from the Department of Health, that's what we would have done. So the nurse said, "No, it's not official yet." I said, "Great." I said, "So please let me know if that becomes a thing." She says, "Okay." So she goes, "Well, you could have your daughter get the shot." And I said, or my daughter could get the chicken pox. That would be a natural thing. She looked at me like I had 10 heads and I was the worst dad ever. So I said, "Well, okay." I said, "That's fine." Because to me, I would have been like, "Great, get it over with, get God-given lifetime immunity. It's so much better when you're 9 than when you're 40. Get it done." So I never heard anything about it. As I was ending the call or the conversation, I said, "I got to ask you, and you're not going to answer me, but think about it." I said, "The child that has the chicken pox in the classroom," I said, "what is that child's inoculation status?" "Oh, they're fully inoculated." I said, "How's that working for them? And why is my daughter, who's not expressing no symptoms, putting the other children who are inoculated at risk?"
This is so
She
mindful.
couldn't put her head around the question. That child had been inoculated for chickenpox, has chickenpox. They're calling me about my daughter, who's in the same classroom, expressing no symptoms, no chickenpox, not inoculated, but she is putting all the inoculated kids at risk. Okay. I said, "Fine, let me know." And I never heard anything about it again. But think about it. That's I'm the one putting my daughter, if you want to say it, at risk, because she's in a soup of protected people with this rogue virus swimming around making people sick. How about the nurse at the doctor's office? How many adults my age have tried to get a new job at the hospital? They run a titer on their bloods, because if all those vaccines worked, you would show antibodies to measles, mumps, rubella, and all that. 50% of the people that I know that are over probably 40 have zero titer of any of those things they were inoculated for, so they have to get inoculated again. So it's not lasting. So I contend, by allowing my children the freedom to sleep, have a good sleep discipline, eat well, get adjusted, not be exposed to toxins, get outside, have a healthy lifestyle, their bodies are going to be fortified and vital and vibrant. Yeah, we're probably exposed to chickenpox all day long, but we're not an oppressed or a sick ecosystem in which that virus can contaminate us and then become sick. It's the host, not the condition. Because if it was, every doctor or every nurse that had seen anybody with this latest virus would have been sick and dead.
Yeah.
We were surrounded by it all the time and we didn't know it, but they were healthy enough to defend it, because that innate God-given healing ability of the body was like, "No, I see it, maybe a little cold, a little fever, boom, done. Don't even notice it."
Wow.
So you can extrapolate that. That's pretty much any condition over time. And going back to, like you said about polio thing, one thing is probably, I don't know the statistics, but also look at the overall health of the society. We didn't have soaps. We weren't cleaning ourselves. I mean, doctors were one of the greatest benefit to survival risk of a child being born in mother mortality was the doctor washing his hands before he delivered a baby. Oh my God, right? So I think our genesis of hygiene, communicable disease prevention, and all of that stuff helped as much, if not more, than an outside intervention. So
Yeah.
I think a lot of that went together with it. So
Wow.
yeah, it's a heavy question, and it polarizes so many people.
I hope you can tell how ignorant I am to all of this. This is all very naive to me. I've never looked into this. Like, I'm just thinking, like, why are we contact tracing for chickenpox? Doesn't that just mean the kid takes a few oatmeal baths and gets to watch cartoons for a few days? Like,
That's how it was when I was growing up. I would, in my time back in the 70s, if you had chickenpox, my mom would bring you over to your house, get it done. And you might not have even had a full bore exposure, but you would have maybe had a mild reaction because your body was vital. It wasn't eating Fruit Loops and chicken, and ring dings and donuts. So you'd have a little speed bump and it was no problem. But you were naturally protected from life. Just like any other system, I contend that the elimination of some of these childhood conditions, the mumps, you could probably say, chicken pox, these things helped strengthen that immune system so it learned how to become stronger, how to defend itself. And I'm not a scientist. I've done the research. I've heard anecdotally that people who've had childhood diseases have less risk of potentially lymphomas, cancers later in life because their immune systems are stressed. These young people who are living in this hermetically sealed bubble with antibacterial crap and they're not exposed to the dirt, their immune systems aren't aware. So I think that they're probably more allergenic. They're more hypersensitive to things. There's a natural order to things. And again, when we use our educated brain to bypass that, sometimes I think we get into trouble.
Yeah, that's so
interesting. Out of probably good intentions and profit.
Of course. Yeah, of course. I love the way you explained that. You explained it in a way that's very practical. People can make their own decisions. It isn't dogmatic. Look, this whole thing started because of something you said after we recorded last time. You said something about your kids not getting shots. I was curious about it. You said, I asked for a picture. You sent me a picture with all your kiddos, and I couldn't remember like all the things we used to get shots for. So I texted you back and said, first of all, what I had to do is I had to go to the CDC website because I didn't remember what I was like,
of course,
what some of these shots for. So I go to the CDC website and I see the first few names. I'm like, wow, doesn't look like your kids have polio and mumps and measles, whatever. Right. And I have not been on the CDC website. So, I'm there. I'm going to scroll around and scroll around and scroll around. And it's a little shocking. I must say, I was not expecting that. There are several doses, many given in the first year, repeat doses given many years. I've never seen that. Again, people can do, I don't know anything about them. I can't speak to any individual vaccinations. I don't study this. I don't look at this, but I can tell you, like, when you smell a rat, you kind of smell a rat.
Because it's just a lot. It's just a lot. And, again, I really have empathy for that young parent who their only reference is growing up in a sick home from parents out of good intentions, but are sick. I mean, mom's taking 4 meds. She's lived in, you listen to the doctor. You go to the doctor. In Rhode Island, it's very hard pressed to even find a pediatrician that will take a family that isn't 100% on schedule. Because I've had families move in from another state. Somehow they find me and they'll be like, hey, do you have a recommendation of a pediatrician? And I said, well, maybe this one. Nope, I called the office. Literally, a pediatrician's office, the first question after what is your insurance will be, are your children on their inoculation schedule? And if you say no, or we've modified it or deviated, a lot of them will say, no, we're not taking those kind of patients. Because sadly, it is my understanding that a lot of these offices are incentivized financially if their patient base has the appropriate number of percentages that are on full schedule. They get bonuses. So they probably believe that this is a very important thing to raise a healthy child. But there's also, I can't risk losing my $75,000 a year bonus. Or like when Dr. Baker was practicing, orthopedics by telling people to eat something differently, he was outside of his realm of traditional care. They're going to be ostracized. They might be penalized. They might be, in trouble. So it's awful. And I was talking with Scott, like we really, You have people like myself who are healthcare practitioners who practice the vitalistic, life is good, life will heal. You have these wonderful intended sickness care doctors. There isn't really a bridge from that sickness doctor to remove you from that sickness model to the wellness model anymore. We don't have like a doctor that fits in the middle there. So I think that's where we have to make that patient become their own advocate and become that doctor to get themselves towards health. So yeah, for somebody like yourself, you've never experienced, you're meeting some crazy fast talking nut job from Rhode Island, and he's talking about these things, and you look and go, wow, look at my children. Their skin is beautiful. They're vibrant. Their hair they're just healthy. They're not sick. They get up, they go to work, they eat. No allergies, no nothing except that antibiotics. So, enough said. But yeah,
I was going to ask if you wanted to go into greater detail on what their lives are like. Like what is different about their lives than the other kids around them? I know you said earlier it was different.
Yeah, it's just particularly during the last 3 years, right? So I have taught my children never to be fearful of an outside agent making them sick. I've always taught them that if you're particularly around finals with my older son, I said, look, if you run yourself down, you got to make sure you get some sleep in there. Don't eat the junk food. Try not to make these bad decisions. Get to sleep. Take some self-care time. Go for a walk. Get yourself going. Because when you become a vulnerable human being, you become sick. It's not the strep that's going to get you. It's your lowered immune system. Because I said to them, everybody in their class has strep. Everybody has strep. Why don't we get strep? You almost feel like, damn it, I don't get a day off. I didn't get strep. I said, well, you have strep. And I guarantee you that you probably have strep somewhere in your body, but your body is strong enough to repel that. You don't have to have glands taken out because you're chronically, you're a healthy vessel. So you're going to be somewhat impervious to these things, although it's in the environment. It's there. If you're in the classroom with 4 people who had strep yesterday, strep is in the environment. You're strong enough to not be sick. So when the last 3 years were going, they couldn't understand why they couldn't go play at Emily's house. I said, well, Emily's mom and dad are scared of the virus. They're fearful that their body isn't enough to be healthy. We don't even think that way. We don't reach. I've taught them that antibacterial crap, unless we're camping in the woods or whatever, we can't wash our hands, is really bad for you. So, they're seeing this crap everywhere and they're like, ew, this is gross, because I've taught them that you need bacteria. You need to be exposed to stuff. Your body needs to be stressed in a positive way to develop itself. So even just from the mindset of how we live, like we don't something falls on the floor. All right, pick it up, eat it. Our floor is pretty darn clean. We don't germaphobe. We don't fear things. So they were kind of taken aback when the world, in a sense, shut down for some unknown thing. And that was hard for them to understand. It bummed them out a little bit because they wanted to live their life. So, my children, we eat, I'm up at 4:30 every morning. Everybody gets a full breakfast, nice breakfast. We go to like 15 dozen eggs. I think you do more than I do, man. You're the egg man, but so we just eat healthy, whole foods. We pack them their lunches. We try to eat as a family every night together. We talk about their day. We review their homework. I look at their grades every day. We just really are part of their lives, and we teach them by example. My youngest children had always been in the office when they were young, so they got to see this exchange and how we talk to people. Just the mere fact of trying to be kind. It's just everything. You talk to everybody, you good handshake, you look them in the eyes. We try to teach them the things that are important to us. So yeah, we live that every day. And, we live on a golf course, and this time of year, my daughter hates this time of year because it's mulching time. Well, all 5 of us will be out there doing yard work because, our home is their home. They need to have pride in it. So yeah, there's no free ride, but they hopefully value what we do because we're a team. This is their home. This is how we live. We ask for help. They have their own little chores. The little guy does the trash. So they become a part of our home, and hopefully they learn hard work, good ethics. And then I think we lead by example. And then we have these conversations about things will come up and we'll talk about it. And they'll talk about something that came up in school, like in health class. And I'll be like, well, this is the rub when you live a different life, because the person holding the grade book wants to hear an answer. You need to know the answer that they want to hear, and you need to know the truth. So they'll talk about something in health class, and it might have been even about a vaccine. I said, well, that is their truth. That is the truth that will give you an A. But let me tell you how we feel. So we try to break it down to them. So we try to teach them to discern everything they hear, but yet realize you're not fighting the man sometimes. You have to just go with the flow. So it's tough. That's a tough conversation to have, like with a 12-year-old who just wants to go play with a girlfriend, but they're held up at home wearing a spacesuit because they're scared of some outside agent making them sick. And it's like, even now, if we're driving around and we're seeing somebody wearing a mask or something like that, I have empathy for those people because they're so scared because their authorities have beaten them down to make them fearful of life versus the confidence in their own innate ability to be healthy or vital or whatever. It's saddening. Sometimes you want to just go up to them and go, it's okay. You're strong. You're healthier than this. You're stronger than this. It's tough. It's tough when you know what you know and you just want to share it, but sometimes they're just not ready to hear it yet.
Yeah, no, that's right. And it was a difficult time and 3 years where people really had to choose sides and pick battles. And, the thing that got me the most was the transmission story. Like I knew I was going to be fine, but I made my decisions because I didn't want to feel like I was carrying asymptomatically to other people who were sick and were going to get it. I was sold a bill of goods about that.
Well, and sadly now they're admitting that, we were wrong. Those crazy people, they were kind of, it's just, but at what expense, sad. And the consequences of some of that technology that they were employing on people has really kind of been untested. And I'm fearful of what that might be in multiple years to come. That's fearful, scary.
Yeah, it is. Well, I have to say, I haven't met your kids. I don't know your kids. I haven't watched them in a video, but you sent me that picture. And again, not knowing them, things shine through. You can see deeper into somebody than, just their appearance. And I have to say, all of you in that picture, you've got a coolness. Like it's almost like you guys know something that somebody doesn't. And you've got like this like subtle, like a little bit of a grin on, and like, they all look super cool. I can imagine what kind of lives they live, being healthy and vital and understanding some of these things. And then again, to see that compound over the course of their lives, I would be very much willing to bet that they're going to have very productive and healthy and happy lives. It would be the same life I would want to provide for my children.
And I think a lot of it is outlook too, right? You can choose to find that negative and that defeative thing in any situation, a technology thing or anything like that, or you can choose to find it as an opportunity to kind of move forward and find an answer. So we try to teach them to just find that possibility out of anything and not having to worry about that outside agent that's going to take them down. I guess that's one thing they don't have to worry about.
Yeah, that's fantastic. I really hope people stuck with us through this episode before we get canceled and whatever.
Yeah, I mean, again, I don't think anything we said was illogical. I don't think it was dogmatic. I think it hopefully will, couple things. One, give somebody something to think about, because that's number one. Number two, somebody who might be thinking that way will be like, wow, there's somebody else who's doing what I kind of innately feel is right. Maybe they'll reach out to me or reach out to you to get in touch with me. I'm absolutely open to just have a conversation with anybody. And B, just, maybe somebody will just take that pause to say, hold on, let me just, you know what? I'm going to give it 24 hours, 48 hours. I'm going to do my due diligence. And I might be right back here tomorrow and take that pill that you're going to give me. But I really want to know a little bit more about it. And sometimes going to talk to the pharmacist, they know more about some of the meds than the doctors do. And the pharmacist will be like, are you kidding me? You can't take this with this. So don't always put faith on that authority. You have to, you should be empowered to make your own decisions. And sometimes I think that generation, like my parents' generation, you don't question the doctor. Me, just by my nature, I always have. Your generation, you guys get that information at your fingertips, and you can learn more about them than a lot of times than even the doctors do. And like I said, the last time we got together is if you can find a practitioner who has a reduced ego and is open enough to say, look, I'm here. I'm learning every day from you. And that's how I've always looked at my practice. Then we can kind of work together to make you better versus I'm the authority. Don't question me. Because then that's failure, because we all can learn. Absolutely.
No, I agree. I do think we hopefully accomplish that goal of providing information. I feel like this was a wonderful, very thoughtful conversation. It's so fascinating. It's something that I want to research more, and I really appreciate, if nothing else, the courage that it must have taken to realize that something wasn't going to go the way that you thought was right, and whether you were going to be right or not, you did the research enough to feel confident to do it with your family, and to now see those results. And again, hopefully we've set our kids up to have an awesome, amazing life. I really appreciate how difficult that would have been and how courageous that would have been, but to stick to your guns through whatever opposition. You must have had a lot more than what you just revealed to us today. It takes a lot. So I think it's super cool. And I just really appreciate the time you took today to be back on our show to talk about some of this stuff. Where would you like people to go to find you, to connect with you and your work?
Yeah, the website is docblack.com, DocBlack.com. I started that Instagram chiropractic carnivore after we last met. So people have been finding me on there. And again, I'm open. Send me a message. If you have a question, we'll talk about it, or reach out to you and you can pass that along. But yeah, this is important for me to share because it helps fortify what I got. And this is good for me to do too. So I love talking about it, and blending these worlds together, I think has really made a lot of sense for me to help myself, but also those others that I take care of in different ways. So I love the exchange, and you pushing me to think my own thoughts through is helpful too. So yeah, look me up.
It's super cool. It's super cool that, like, you're right. Like, all of these different disciplines. We talked last time about chiropractic helping the immune system. We all know what carnivore diets and low carbohydrate and ketogenic diets can do for the immune system. It's so cool to combine all of those things that really help people understand how they can allow everything you've explained, allow your body to take care of itself as after you remove all the obstacles. So again, Dr. Black, thank you so very much for appearing on our show. This is super fascinating. Really appreciate your time and your honesty, and thank you so very much.
Thanks again, Casey.
Absolutely. And this has been another episode of Boundless Body Radio.